Hey guys, tonight we are going to travel. Not to a city you can find on a map today, but to a time and to a body. We're going to step into the life of a young woman in the ancient world, a place where the sun, the dust, and the divine were all tangled up together. Your world will be governed by laws you can't see, written not just on scrolls, but on the very functions of your own body. Frankly, given the rules we're about to encounter, you'd probably find yourself accidentally breaking a dozen of them before breakfast. It's a journey into a different kind of reality, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, I'd love to see where you're listening from. Let me know your city and what time it is for you in the comments below. It's always amazing to see how this little corner of the internet connects us all. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you're aware of is the warmth. Not a gentle warmth, but a heavy, baked-in heat that rises from the packed earth beneath your bare feet. You're a child, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Your world is a tapestry of beige, ochre, and the deep, rich brown of wet mud. Your house, like all the others in this dusty handful of a village, is made of sun-dried clay bricks. It has a flat roof, which is less a roof and more of a second, open-air room where your family sleeps on hot nights under a thick blanket of stars so bright they feel close enough to touch. Your days are a rhythm of simple, repeating tasks. You follow your mother to the community well, your small hands struggling to help her steady the heavy clay jug on her hip on the way back. The air is thick with the smells of life, the sharp scent of goats, the earthy aroma of a fire, and the pervasive, slightly sweet smell of sun-baked dust. This is your world, and it feels infinite and unchanging. As a child, you have a freedom that feels as wide as the sky. You chase lizards through the narrow alleyways between houses, their tiny bodies vanishing into cracks in the clay walls. You play games with your friends, using polished sheep knuckle bones, tossing them in the air and trying to catch them on the back of your hand. It's a simple, absorbing joy. You notice things, of course. You notice how the world is divided. The men and older boys leave at dawn, their voices deep and purposeful as they head to the fields or to tend the herds. The women and girls, their world is centered here, in the village, around the hearths, the looms, and the well. One of the smells you've grown up with, one you barely even notice anymore, is the faint, smoky scent of burning dung. Dried animal dung is the fuel for your family's small clay oven, a resource as vital as water or grain. It's a fascinating little detail of your life that the waste of the animals that give you milk and wool is also what cooks your daily bread. Nothing is truly wasted here, everything has its cycle and its purpose. You don't think of it as dirty or clean. It just is dirty or clean. It's a part of the rhythm. But there are other rhythms you don't yet understand, rhythms that belong only to the women. Sometimes an older girl, one you used to play with, simply disappears for a few days. When she comes back, she seems quieter, more watchful. The women don't speak of it, not directly. They just nod, a sign understanding passing between them. You see it, but you don't have the words for it. It's a secret held in plain sight. You are still in that golden period of childhood where the world is mostly literal. A rock is a rock. A goat is a goat. The rules are simple, don't wander too far. Respect the elders, share your food. You have no concept of a rule that could be invisible. A rule that lives inside a person's body. The idea of being unclean is abstract. Unclean is mud on your feet, which can be washed off. Unclean is spilling food on your tunic, which can be scrubbed. Could become unclean as a puzzle you haven't even conceived of yet. Historians and archaeologists still debate the precise social structures of these small, pre-literate or newly literate communities. Were they governed by strict, patriarchal laws handed down from a king or a temple, or did they run on a complex, unwritten web of customs and traditions, passed down from mother to daughter, father to son? Looking around your small world, you can feel the truth is likely somewhere in between. There is the authority of the village elders, but there is also the quiet, powerful authority of your mother and the other women who seem to operate by a code all their own. For now, you are blissfully outside of it, living in the sun. The shadows are there, at the edges of your vision, but you haven't learned you need to pay attention to them. Not yet. The years are marked not by dates on a calendar, but by the height of the sun and the cycles of the harvest. You're a little older now, perhaps then. Your legs are longer, your hands more capable. You can carry a small jug of water from the well all by yourself, though your arms ache by the time you get it home. Your awareness of the world has sharpened, like a stone being slowly ground to a point. You've started to notice the patterns you were once blind to. The place where the village's secrets are poured out like water is the well. The well is the heart of the women's world. It's a stone-lined pit, deep and cool, its surface reflecting a sliver of the bright sky above. A rough-hewn wooden frame stands over it, the rope coarse and familiar in your hands. Going to the well is a ritual. It's where news is exchanged, where arguments flare up and are settled, and where reputations are quietly built or dismantled through hushed words. Your mother and the other women gather there, in the cooler hours of the morning and evening, their chatter a constant, humming backdrop to the creak of the rope and the splash of the bucket. It's during one of these morning gatherings that you see it again, but this time, you understand that you're seeing something significant. A woman named Leah, the wife of a potter, approaches the well. She is young and usually has a quick smile, but today her shoulders are slumped, her eyes fixed on the ground in front of her. As she gets closer, a subtle change ripples through the group of women. It's almost imperceptible, like a breeze stirring the leaves of a single tree. Their laughter falters. Conversations don't stop, but they change key, becoming softer, more deliberate. Your mother, who was just laughing with a neighbor, straightens up. She takes a small, almost unconscious step back, pulling you with her. You watch as another woman, who was standing right by the well's edge, suddenly finds a reason to adjust the jug on her hip, a movement that conveniently puts another foot of space between herself and Leah. No one is unkind. No one says a harsh word, but a space has been created around Leah, an invisible bubble of emptiness. She doesn't look at anyone. She waits her turn, draws her water in silence, and hefts the heavy jug onto her shoulder. As she walks away, her back straight, the normal sounds of the well slowly return, like a stream flowing back into its bed after a boulder has been dropped in it. But now there are whispers. They are quiet, passed from ear to ear behind cupped hands. It is her time again. 7 days at least. Her husband had to cook his own meal this morning. The words are fragments, clues to a puzzle you don't have the picture for. You tug on your mother's sleeve. Mother, why did everyone move away from Leah? Is she sick? Your mother looks down at you, her expression unreadable. She doesn't shush you, but she places a gentle finger on your lips. It is not a sickness, little one, she says, her voice low. It is the way of things. A woman's way. You are not yet old enough to carry this knowledge. She turns back to her friend, and the conversation shifts to the price of barley, leaving you standing in a cloud of unanswered questions. It's a strange and fascinating detail of your culture that water itself is seen in different ways. The water from this well is for drinking, for cooking, for washing away the daily grime. But you've heard the women whisper of a different kind of cleansing, one that requires living water from a spring or a flowing river. They say that after Leah's 7 days are done, she must go to the stream that runs a mile from the village to be truly clean again. It's a distinction you don't grasp. Water is water, isn't it? How can one kind be different from another? This is your first real lesson in the idea of ritual purity versus simple cleanliness. One is about dirt you can see. The other is about a state you can only be told about. Historians still debate the origins and purpose of these intricate rules. Were they born from an ancient, primal fear of blood and its connection to life and death, or were they a sophisticated system of social control, a way to structure society, marking time and creating order in a world that often felt chaotic? Looking at the women by the well, you sense it might be both. You see the genuine deference in their movements, a respect for a powerful, unseen force. But you also see the subtle power dynamics, the way knowing glances are exchanged, reaffirming who belongs to the inner circle and who is, for a time, on the outside. You look at your own hands, your own body. They feel the same as they did yesterday. You can't imagine a day when your own presence could cause a silence to fall, when your friends might step away from you without a word. The thought is a small, cold stone in the pit of your stomach. The world is no longer just made of sun and dust and goats. It's made of invisible walls too. And you've just learned how to see them. The invisible walls, once you've seen them, are everywhere. They are in the way an older man will take a slightly wider path to avoid walking too close to a group of women. They are in the specific bowl your father uses, which your mother washes with extra care, and they are most palpable, most real, in the presence of someone who is officially marked. There's a woman in the village, an older widow named Tama. She is frail, her back bent from a lifetime of work, but she is known for her skill in healing. She knows which herbs can soothe the fever and which poultices can draw the poison from a scorpion sting. She is respected. But one afternoon, as you are helping your mother grind wheat into flour with a heavy stone pestle, you hear a commotion from the lane outside. You and your mother go to the doorway, peering out into the harsh sunlight. A small group is moving down the path. It's the village elder, his staff of office in his hand, and with him are two other men. Between them, walking slowly, is Tama. But this is not the Tama you know. Her hair, usually neatly covered, is unbound and hangs loose around her shoulders. Her clothes are torn at the collar, a deliberate, symbolic rip, and as she walks, she is muttering a phrase, over and over, her voice raspy and lower, her voice, raspy and over. Unclean, unclean. The villagers who are out and about stop what they are doing. They don't gawk, but they avert their eyes and step back, pulling their children close. A path opens before her as if by magic. The air grows still, the only sounds are the shuffling of her feet in the dust and that single, repeated word. Your mother pulls you back from the doorway, her hand firm on your arm. Do not look too long, she whispers. What happened to her, you ask, your voice a hushed breath. What did she do? She has an issue of blood, your mother says, her voice tight. It is not her monthly time. It flows without stopping. The law says she must warn others, so that they do not accidentally touch her or her garments and become unclean themselves. This is a new and terrifying dimension. Leah's condition was temporarily predictable. It was a week in the shadows, then back to normal life. But Tamara's condition is a curse with no end in sight. She is in a permanent state of exile while still living in your midst. She is a ghost in her own village. You think of her small, neat house. Is her bowl now forever separate? Can no one visit her who will bring her food? The rule feels less like a lawn, more like a cage of air, built around her, separating her from everyone she has ever known. You learn a fascinating and heartbreaking detail about this law. Anything she sits on or lies on also becomes unclean. If someone were to accidentally sit where she had been sitting, they too would be considered unclean until evening and would have to wash their clothes. The contamination spreads, invisibly, like a contagion of the soul. The logistical and emotional gymnastics required to navigate this must be exhausting. How does she exist? Does she carry her own stool with her? The practicalities are dizzying. You can't help but watch as she is escorted to the edge of the village to a small, isolated hut that has stood empty for years. It is now her home, her prison. The elder and the men do not touch her. They stop a respectful distance away, gesture towards the hut, and leave a small bundle of food on the ground for her. Then they turn and walk away, leaving her utterly alone. That evening, as the sun sets and paints the sky in shades of orange and purple, you can see the small hut silhouetted against the fading light. A thin wisp of smoke rises from it. She must be cooking the food that was left for her. She is so close you could walk there in minutes. But she is also a world away. She has been cut off from the community, from the temple, from her family, from every form of normal human contact. This is where the academic debates feel most sterile. Scholars can argue whether these laws were about public health or primitive understanding of contagion, or about maintaining symbolic order. One theory suggests that blood, as the life force, was considered sacred to God alone. Any unsanctioned loss of blood was therefore a trespass into the divine domain, creating a state of ritual impurity. But for you, a child watching from your rooftop, It is not an abstract theory. You see a lonely, elderly woman, ostracized for a sickness she cannot control. You feel the raw human fear. Not a fear of Tama herself, but a fear of becoming Tama. A fear of your own body betraying you in a way that could lead to such a profound and desolate loneliness. The word she repeated, unclean, echoes in your mind. It's no longer about mud or spilled food. It's a brand, a verdict, a wall built of a single word. And for the first time you feel a flicker of fear for the future that is waiting inside your own body, a future of blood and rules you are only just beginning to comprehend. The world you live in is saturated with the divine. It's not a once-a-week affair, it's in the air you breathe and the ground you walk on. The most potent symbol of this is the sanctuary, the sacred space where the divine is believed to dwell in a special way. It might not be a grand temple like the ones in the big cities you hear stories about. For your village at the settlement, or perhaps a small, well-maintained stone building, plain on the outside but housing a profound mystery within. This is the place your people call holy. It is the center of your collective spiritual life. It's where offerings are made, where prayers are spoken for a good harvest or for the health of a sick child. It is the axis around which your whole community revolves. From a young age, you are taught a deep and abiding reverence for this place. You don't run or shout near it. You approach it with a sense of quiet awe. You've been inside, of course, but only in the outer courtyard. You remember clutching your father's hand, your eyes wide. You saw the altar where sacrifices were made, perhaps it of or a handful of grain, depending on the occasion and the family's wealth. The air inside smelled different, a mixture of incense, roasting meat, and something ancient and indescribable. It was a place of power. Your father explained that only the elders and priests could go further into the holiest part. To enter improperly, or in an unfit state, was to risk the wrath of the divine, a terrifying thought. The rules about who can and cannot approach this sacred space are absolute. They form the bedrock of your social and religious life. You know that someone who has touched a dead body is considered unclean for a set period. You know that certain skin diseases render a person unclean. And you know from the whispers and the averted glances that the mysterious monthly affliction of women is high on that list of prohibitions. One day, you are tasked with taking a small basket of figs to the family of a priest who lives near the sacred enclosure. It's a task that fills you with a sense of importance. You walk carefully, making sure not to stumble and spill the precious fruit. As you approach the low stone wall that marks the boundary of the holy ground, you see a family ahead of you. A man, a woman, and a young boy, all in their finest clothes. They are clearly here to make an offering. The man and the boy pass through the gate in the wall, but the woman stops just outside. She doesn't even touch the gate. She hands a small wooden cage containing a pair of birds to her husband, her arm stretching across the invisible threshold. She says something to him, her voice too low for you to hear, and then she steps back and waits. She finds a rock to sit on, a good distance away, her posture patient and resigned. You've seen this before, but now with your new understanding, it clicks into place. Her husband and son will go and perform the ritual. They will enter the presence of the divine. She, for reasons locked within her own body, cannot. She can come this far, but no further. She is a supporter, a spectator, a provider of the offering, but she cannot be a participant. The stone wall is a physical barrier, but she is stopped by one you cannot see. It's a profound illustration of her temporary status part of the community, but excluded from its most vital act. Here's a curious detail you wouldn't think about. It's not just about her. According to the strictest interpretations of the law, if her husband were to touch her and then enter the sanctuary, you would be carrying her impurity with him, defiling the holy space. The rules create a chain of contamination that must be obsessively managed. This is why the separation is so stark and so public. It's a safeguard not just for the individual, but for the spiritual well-being of the entire community. Historians and theologians have long debated the underlying theology here. Is this exclusion meant as a punishment, or is it seen more as a natural consequence of incompatible states? like trying to mix oil and water. Some scholars argue that in the ancient mindset, life and death were potent forces. A woman during her period was seen as being in the dominion of life that did not happen, a sacred but negative state that was diametrically opposed to the positive life was concentrated in the sanctuary and in the sanctuary. It wasn't about her being bad or sinful, but simply in a state of holy opposition. You, however, are not a theologian. You're a girl with a basket of figs, watching a woman watch her family from a distance. You see the longing in her eyes. You see her straighten up with pride as her husband and son emerge, their spiritual duty done. She greets them with a smile, takes her place beside them, and they walk away as a family once more. But for that short period, she was separate. The holiest place in your world, the source of comfort and meaning for your people, had a sign at its gate, visible only to her, that said, "Not for you. Not today." As you continue on your errand, you clutch the basket a little tighter, a strange new anxiety coiling in your stomach. You wonder when you too will learn to read that invisible sign. The days continue their slow, rhythmic dance. You help your mother with the weaving, the endless, repetitive motion of the shuttle passing back and forth, creating a pattern from a mess of threads. Your own body is growing, changing in ways that are both subtle and startling. You're taller than you were last harvest. Your voice has lost its childish treble. You stand on the cusp of womanhood, a place of awkward, in-between beauty. And then, one morning it happens. You wake up with the sun, the same as any other day. The familiar sounds of the village stirring to life are outside your door, a donkey braying, a neighbor coughing, the distant bleating of sheep. You roll off your sleeping mat, and as you stand you feel a strange, damp warmth. A peculiar dull ache spreads low in your belly, a sensation you've never felt before. You look down at the mat. There, on the woven reeds, is a small, dark red stain. Panic, cold and sharp, lances through you. Your first thought is Tama the healer. Am I sick? Is this the beginning of the curse that never ends? Your heart hammers against your ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. You look at the stain, then at your own hands, as if they belong to a stranger. Your body, your familiar, lifelong companion, has done something without your permission. It has produced a secret. You quickly fold the mat, hiding the evidence. Your mind races. What do you do? Who do you tell? The morning chores await. Your mother is expecting you to help with the kneading of the bread. You can't just stay in your room. You move stiffly, awkwardly, a profound new self-consciousness seizing you. Every step you take, you are aware of the strange new reality within you. It feels like you're carrying a fragile, dangerous secret, a hidden coal that might at any moment burst into flame and burn through your tunic for all to see. You find a spare piece of wool cloth, a rag used for cleaning, and furtively tuck it into your undergarments. It's a clumsy, inadequate solution, but it's all you can think of. You go about your morning tasks in a daze. The dough feels alien under your hands. The water from the jug seems heavier. You are here, but not here. Part of your mind is constantly monitoring your own body, terrified of what it might do next. The world outside you hasn't changed. The sun is the same. The dust is the same, but your relationship to it has been irrevocably altered. You feel a new, sharp kinship with Leah, with the woman at the temple gate. You are on the verge of crossing a threshold into their world, the world of women's secrets. The dull ache in your abdomen is a constant reminder, an internal clock ticking away the last moments of your childhood innocence. It's a strange biological fact that the age of menarche has varied throughout history, often influenced by diet and general health. In your world, with its simple grain-based diet and hard physical labor, it likely happens later than in the modern world, perhaps around age 14. This means you are no longer a child in the eyes of your community. This event is the definitive, biological marker that you are now a woman, capable of marriage and childbirth. It's a moment of immense social and personal significance, but right now all you feel is a quiet, churning dread. Historians often focus on the societal implications of this moment, but the personal experience is harder to capture. Was it celebrated? Was it feared? Was it simply accepted with a quiet resignation for you? In this moment, it's a confusing mix of all three. There's a flicker of importance. You are joining the ranks of adult women, but it's drowned out by the shame and fear that have been ingrained in you through years of observation. You've been taught that this is something to be hidden, something that makes you unclean. Later in the day, unable to bear the secret any longer, you wait until you and your mother are alone, mending a torn fishing net. Your hands are trembling so much you can barely guide the needle. You take a deep breath and, in a voice barely above a whisper, you tell her. You can't bring yourself to use the word blood. You just point to your own belly and say, "Mother, it has come." Your mother stops her work. She looks at you, and for a long moment, she says nothing. Her eyes, which you've only ever seen as either warm or stern, now hold a complex mixture of pity, understanding, and a deep, weary sadness. It's as if she's looking at you and seeing a long, hard road stretching out before you. She reaches out and puts her hand on your shoulder. It is not a gesture of celebration. It is a gesture of quiet solidarity, of one who knows the path, welcoming another who is just about to take the first step. The time for secrets is over. The time for instruction is about to begin. Your mother doesn't speak immediately. She finishes mending the tear in the net, her movements precise and deliberate. It's a small, calming ritual in the face of your turmoil. Then she sets the net aside, takes your hand, and leads you to the small, windowless storage room at the back of the house, where sacks of grain in jars of oil are kept. It's cool and dark inside, smelling of earth and barley. The dim light makes the space feel private, secret. This is a conversation that cannot happen in the open. "This is your first time," she says, her voice low and steady. "It's not a question. Do not be afraid. This happens to all women. It happened to me and to my mother before me. It is our lot, and our strength." She begins to explain the rules. It's not a single simple command, but a complex web of them, a secret law passed down from mother to daughter through generations. This knowledge is not written on any scroll. It is etched into the memories and daily practices of women. For 7 days you are knitted, she says, using the formal term. You've heard the word whispered, but now it is being applied to you. It clings to your skin. In these 7 days, you are set apart. Your body is in a sacred state, but one that is not compatible with the daily world. It is a time of power, and power must be contained. She explains the practicalities first. You cannot sleep on the family mat. You cannot eat from the same bowl as your father or your brothers. If you were to hand your father a piece of bread, the bread itself would not become unclean, but the act of passing it from your hand to his would be a violation of the separation. This is a fine, almost lawyerly distinction that baffles you. It's not about germs, it's about proximity. You must not touch your father or your brothers, she says, her voice firm. When your time comes to be married, you must not touch your husband during these days. Not a hand, not a shoulder. You cannot even pass him a cup directly. You must set it down, and he will pick it up. This rule of separation, called shermanegio in some traditions, is one of the most socially profound aspects of the law. It turns your home into a carefully choreographed bounce, a daily exercise in avoiding contact. Your mother explains that it's not about you being dirty. She uses the analogy of the sanctuary. The altar is holy, and you are holy in your own way during this time. But the two sanctities cannot touch, or they both become profane. Then she tells you about the things you leave in your wake. Whatever you sit upon or lie upon carries your state until the evening. If your brother were to sit on the stool you just sat on, he would have to wash his clothes and would be considered unclean until sunset. This explains the frantic, almost comical-looking way you've seen women quickly grab their cushion or mat if they have to get up for a moment. It's not just a personal item, it's a vessel of their current ritual state. You learn a weirdly specific and fascinating rule about a stone of probation. Some traditions held that a woman would use a special testing cloth, or even a small, smooth stone, to check if the bleeding had truly stopped before she could even begin the process of purification. The idea of using a stone for such an intimate purpose is jarring and strange, a testament to the meticulous, almost scientific precision with which these rules were followed. Your mother gives you a new set of clothes to wear, simple, undyed tunics that will be yours for this time. She gives you a stack of soft, worn wool cloths, much better than the rag you found. She shows you how to fold them and how to wash them discreetly at the end of the day, using a separate basin. As she speaks, you realize this is more than just a list of prohibitions. This is a body of knowledge, a system for managing a difficult and mysterious part of life. It's a way of creating order out of the chaos of biology. For generations, women have navigated this. They have found ways to live, to maintain their families, to hold their dignity, all while adhering to this intricate code. The academic world still debates whether this system was designed by men to control women, or if it was, in part, a system created and maintained by women, for women. Did it give them a domain of their own, a sphere of spiritual authority and knowledge that men could not enter? Listening to your mother, it feels like both. She is instructing you in your own subjugation, in the rules that will limit your freedom and your access to the world. But she is also empowering you, giving you the tools to survive within that system. She is passing on the secret handshake of womanhood. She takes a deep breath and looks at you, her eyes searching your face. You will go to the tent at the edge of the village. The other women who are in their time will be there. You will not be alone. I will bring you food. It is only for 7 days. The thought of the tent fills you with a mix of dread and a strange sort of curiosity. It is the place of exile, but it is also, as your mother just hinted, a place of community. You are being banished, but you are also being initiated. You are about to enter a secret society, one you are born into, whose membership is renewed for most of your life, month after month after month. Your mother helps you gather your things: the clean cloths, a spare tunic, a water skin, and a small blanket. It's not much. It feels like you're preparing for a journey, but you're only going a few hundred paces away. As dusk begins to settle, casting long shadows across the village, your mother walks with you. Not beside you, but a few steps behind, a silent, respectful distance. Your father and brothers are inside the house. They do not watch you go. It's as if you have already disappeared. The path to the edge of the village is familiar, but tonight it feels different. Every stone, every thorny bush seems to mark your passage into this new state of being. The air is cooling, carrying the scent of evening fires and roasting grain from behind. You can hear the sounds of families gathering, the laughter of children, the low murmur of conversation. These are the sounds of a world you are no longer a part of, at least for now. And then you see it, the tent. It's a simple structure made of dark, heavy goat hair cloth, the same material used by desert nomads. It's pitched in a fallow field, set apart from the last line of houses. It is not a place of honor. It looks temporarily forgotten. A small fire burns weakly near the entrance, casting a flickering, uncertain light. This is the place you've heard whispered about. The Beit Hon, either the house of the separated, the menstrual hut. As you approach, the flap of the tent is pushed aside and a woman's face peers out. It's Miriam, a weaver who is a few years older than you. You know her, but you've never really spoken to her. She sees you, and a look of understanding crosses her face. She doesn't smile, exactly, but her expression is not unkind. She holds the flap open for you. "It is your first time," she says, her voice soft. It is the same statement your mother made, a quiet acknowledgement. You nod, unable to speak, and duck inside. The interior of the tent is larger than it looks from the outside. The air inside is thick with the smell of wood smoke, and a faint, slightly metallic scent that you now recognize as the smell of blood. A few small oil lamps cast a warm, dim glow, creating pockets of light and deep shadow. Several sleeping mats are arranged on the ground, and sitting on them are 3 other women. You recognize them all. There's the baker's young wife, an older woman whose name you don't know, and another girl, barely older than you. No one rushes to greet you. There are no formal introductions. They simply look up, nod in acknowledgement, and then return to what they were doing. The older woman is spinning thread with a small hand-held spindle. The baker's wife is quietly honing a small knife on a whetstone. Miriam resumes her task of mending a piece of cloth. You stand awkwardly in the entrance, clutching your small bundle. It feels like the first day at a new school where you know no one. Miriam seems to sense your uncertainty. "There is a mat there," she says, gesturing with her head to an empty spot. Put your things down. We will have food soon. You do as she says, carefully unrolling your mat and blanket. The ground is hard and cool beneath the thin reed matting. You sit tucking your feet under you, feeling small and out of place. The silence in the tent is not an empty silence. It's a comfortable, shared quiet, punctuated by the soft sounds of the women's task, the whir of the spindle, the scrape of the knife on stone, the crackle of the fire outside. This practice of the menstrual hut is one of the most vivid and cross-culturally common aspects of menstrual purity laws. From the ancient Israelites to various Native American tribes to communities in Nepal and parts of Africa, the idea of a separate dwelling for menstruating women has appeared time and again. Anthropologists have spent lifetimes debating its function. Is it purely about containing a perceived impurity, or does it also serve, intentionally or not, as a space for female bonding, a respite from the demands of men and children, a place where female-specific knowledge can be passed down without interruption? You get a small, strange glimpse into this. The baker's wife finishes sharpening her knife and begins to expertly carve a small piece of wood into what looks like a toy animal. She does it with an intense, focused calm. You wonder if this is a skill she ever uses in her own home, or if this quiet, creative work is something reserved for her time here in the tent. It's a tiny, mundane detail, but it suggests a hidden life, a different rhythm that exists only within these dark cloth walls. As the sky outside darkens to a deep indigo, you see a figure approaching the fire. It's your mother, carrying a covered basket. She doesn't come to the tent entrance. She places the basket on a large, flat stone a few paces away and then retreats without a word. After a moment, Miriam gets up and retrieves it. Inside is bread, a small pot of lentil stew, and some cheese. It's your dinner. It's been delivered as if to a leper's doorstep. The nourishment is provided, but the connection is severed. You are cared for, but you are also contained. You are in a prison, but a prison whose only other inmates are women just like you. The first night in the tent is a long one. You lie on your mat, the unfamiliar hardness of the ground beneath you, and listen. The sounds are different here. You are used to the sounds of your family sleeping near by your father's deep, rumbling snore, your brother's occasional sigh. Here, the sounds are the soft breathing of the other women, the rustle of a blanket, the distant cry of a night bird. But more than the sounds you can't hear, it's the sounds you can't hear that define your new reality. The tent is just far enough from the village that the familiar, comforting noises of community life are muffled and distinct. You can't hear the late-night conversations of neighbors sitting on their rooftops. You can't hear the barking of a specific dog that always barks at the moon. You can't hear the cry of a baby from a nearby house. Instead, you hear the voice of the village as a single, homogeneous murmur. It's a low hum of activity, a river of life from which you have been diverted. You lie there and try to picture it. You imagine your father and brothers eating the meal your mother prepared. Are they talking, or is there a quiet space at the table where you used to be? You picture your mother, her work for the day finally done, sitting by the fire. Is she thinking of you? The physical distance is small, but the sensory and emotional distance feels immense. Your world, which was once a rich tapestry of specific, identifiable sounds, has been reduced to just spheres: the immediate, intimate sounds inside the tent, and the vague, inaccessible hum of the world outside. It's a form of sensory deprivation. You are cut off, not just physically, but audibly. In the morning, the sun warms the dark cloth of the tent, and the sounds of the village begin to rise again. The crowing of roosters, the lowing of cattle being led to pasture. These sounds are a painful reminder of the life that is proceeding as normal without you. You can hear the world waking up, but you are not be defined by chores and family rhythms, but by waiting. The other women seem accustomed to this. They wake, they eat a simple breakfast of bread and dates, and they settle into their quiet activities. The older woman with the spindle seems to be able to spin thread for hours on end, her hands moving in a blur of practiced skill. You learn a strange and specific piece of tent etiquette. A woman who is a ZAVH, someone with an unnatural, continuous flow of blood like Tamer, is considered to have a more severe level of impurity. While she would also be isolated, Historical sources are debated on this point. Would she be in the same tent as the Nid of the women with their normal monthly cycles? Or would she be in a state of even more profound isolation? The academic consensus leans towards separate, more stringent isolation for a ZAVH, as her condition was unpredictable and outside the natural rhythm. This creates a hierarchy of impurity, a concept that is dizzying in its complexity. The women here are in a predictable, divinely ordained cycle. Tamara's state is one of chaos. You try to make yourself useful. You gather more twigs for the fire. You help rinse the clay bowls in a basin of water set aside for the tent's use. But mostly you watch and listen. The women don't talk much, but when they do, it's different from the talk at the well. It's more practical, more direct. The damp air makes my joints ache. The older woman complains, rubbing her knee. Did you hear about the trader from the coast? Miriam asks. They say he has dyed cloth from Egypt. The baker's wife looks up from her carving. My husband's brother is thinking of taking a second wife. His first has given him no sons. It's news, but it's spoken without the gossip and posturing of the well. It's a simple sharing of information, of life that continues outside the tent. They are like exiled generals, keeping track of the battle from a distant command post. They are keeping themselves connected to the world through threads of story. You find yourself straining to hear things, trying to interpret the faint sounds from the village. Was that the shout of your brother playing? Was that your mother's voice calling to a neighbor? Each sound is a hook that pulls you back to the life you're missing. The isolation sharpens your hearing, makes you focus on the auditory landscape in a way you never have before. You begin to understand that being unclean isn't just a label, it's an experience. It's the experience of being on the outside of a bubble, able to see and hear the life within, but unable to break through the invisible, sound-dampening wall. You are a ghost haunting the edges of your own life, and your only connection to it is through the phantom echoes that reach you on the breeze. The rhythm of your days in the tent settles into a slow, monotonous beat, marked by the rising and setting of the sun. The most tangible link you have to your former life, to your family, is food. But even this connection is strained, filtered through the thick veil of ritual law. Twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, your mother appears. She never comes close. She walks to the large, flat stone that has been unofficially designated as the drop-off point, a sort of no man's land between the clean world and your unclean one. She places a basket or a covered pot on the stone, turns, and walks away. She might offer a small wave, a brief glance. But there are no words. It's a silent, heartbreaking pantomime performed across a stage of death. After she is a safe distance away, one of you, usually Miriam, who has taken on the role of the tent's unofficial leader, goes to retrieve the food. The other women's husbands or mothers or sisters do the same. The stone becomes a silent hub of commerce, a place of exchange where no hands ever meet. Today, the food your mother has brought is a stew of beans and onions, still warm, and 2 flat, round loaves of bread. As you eat, huddled with the other women near the fire, you can taste your mother's hand in it. You know the exact way she adds a pinch of hyssop to the stew, the specific texture of her bread. It's a taste of home, a taste of love, but it's delivered with the sterile caution one might use to feed a dangerous animal. This careful, distant delivery of food highlights one of the most pervasive aspects of your temporary status. You are a source of potential contamination. The rules are intricate. While you yourself are unclean, the food you eat is not, unless you were to touch it and then give it to someone else. But the vessels, the bowl you eat from, the cup you drink from, these become unclean through your use. You have your own set of dishes in the tent, a small collection of rough, unadorned clay bowls and cups. They are chipped and mismatched, clearly the cast-off from various households. These are your dishes now. At the end of the meal, you are responsible for washing your own bowl in a separate basin, using water drawn specifically for the tent. You cannot use the main village well. Someone, usually a younger boy who is not yet subject to the full weight of the laws, is tasked with leaving jugs of water near the drop-off stone. Everything is designed to minimize contact, to create a buffer zone around you and the things you touch. You learn a fascinating and slightly bizarre extension of this rule. According to some ancient texts, it wasn't just about direct touch. If a clean person and an unclean person were to, say, sit on opposite ends of a long, wobbly plank of wood, and the movement of one caused the other to rock up and down, that could be considered a form of carrying or conveying impurity. The idea of being made unclean by a seesaw effect is a perfect example of how these laws extended from practical fears into the realm of abstract, almost magical thinking. As you scrape the last of the stew from your bowl, you watch the other women. The older woman eats slowly, methodically. The baker's wife seems to savor every bite, her eyes closed. You realize that for them, this is routine. They know the drill. They have accepted the distant provisioning, the separate dishes, the invisible wall. For you, it's a fresh wound. You miss the simple act of sharing a meal. You miss sitting on the floor with your family, dipping your bread into a common bowl of stew, your hands and elbows occasionally bumping. That casual, thoughtless intimacy now seems like a lost paradise. Here, every woman eats from her own bowl, in her own space. There is no sharing. Even in this small community of outcasts, a certain distance is maintained. Historians debate the practical origins of these food-related rules. Were they a primitive form of hygiene, an attempt to prevent the spread of disease in an era with no understanding of germs, or were they purely symbolic? A way of constantly reinforcing the social and spiritual separation? The answer is likely a bit of both. The fear of blood is a powerful primal thing. Treating anything associated with it as off-limits might have seemed like a logical, spiritual precaution. But for you, sitting in the dust, the theory is irrelevant. The reality is the ache of loneliness you feel with every bite. The food fills your stomach, but it doesn't fill the hollowness you feel inside. It's a reminder of what you've lost. You are being kept alive, but you are not part of life. You are being nourished, but you are not being nurtured. Each meal is both a gift and a reminder of your exile, and you still have days of this to go. Of all the rules that now govern your existence, the most absolute, the one that hums with a constant, low-grade intensity, is the law of the forbidden touch. Your body, which once moved through the world with thoughtless freedom, is now a carefully managed object, a vessel of ritual power that must not make contact with the ordinary world. This lesson is driven home in a small, sharp incident on your third day in the tent. Your younger brother, who was perhaps 5 years old and still exists in that innocent world before rules truly take hold, has been missing you. In a moment when your mother is distracted, he toddlers away from the house, drawn by a child's simple homing instinct, and makes his way towards the forbidden tent. You are sitting just inside the entrance, listlessly tracing patterns in the dust, when you see his small, determined figure appear. Your heart leaps. It's a piece of home, walking right towards you. He sees you, his face breaks into a wide, gap-toothed grin, and he starts to run, his arms outstretched for a hug. "Sister," he calls out. For a split second, your own arms start to lift. Your body's instinct is to receive him, to scoop him up, to feel his small, warm body against yours. But then the law, which has been drilled into you by your mother and reinforced by the atmosphere of the tent, slams down like a gate. No, the word tears out of your throat, sharp and panicked. Stop. Your shout freezes him in his tracks. The smile vanishes from his face, replaced by confusion and hurt. He looks at you, his lip beginning to tremble, not understanding why the sister who always hugged him is now yelling at him to stay away. At that moment, Miriam, who sees everything, is by your side. She puts a hand on your shoulder, a touch that is allowed here, in this separate world, and steps in front of you, positioning herself between you and your brother. "Go back to your mother, little one," she says, her voice firm but not unkind. "Your sister cannot play with you today. Go now." Just then, you hear your mother's frantic call. She appears, her face a mask of worry, and rushes to your brother, scooping him up. She glares at you, a quick, hot look of anger and fear, not anger at you, but at the situation, at the near transgression. Then she turns and hurries away, murmuring reassurances to the now sobbing child in her arms. You are left shaking, a cold sweat on your skin. You almost touched him. And what would have happened then according to the law? Your brother, a small child, would have been rendered unclean until evening. He would have had to be washed, he would have been for a few hours in the same state as you, set apart. The idea of a forbidden touch is central to these purity laws. It is the primary mechanism by which the state of nidda is contained. This prohibition is so strong that in some later, more developed legal traditions, there were extensive debates about indirect touch. Can a husband and wife who are separated by this law share a bed, even with a barrier between them? The general consensus was no, because the intimacy of the setting might lead to accidental or intentional touch. The law aimed to build a fence around the core prohibition, preventing even the possibility of a breach. Here's a curious, related belief from a slightly different cultural context, but with similar roots. Some folk traditions held that a menstruating woman's touch could curdle milk, spoil wine, or blunt a sharp knife. This idea, which seems absurd to a modern mind, shows how the concept of impurity bled out from the purely religious sphere into a kind of supernatural, almost magical bad luck. Her touch wasn't just ritually problematic, it was seen as actively destructive to the physical world. While your community may not hold these specific beliefs, the underlying fear of a woman's power during this time is the same. The incident with your brother leaves you feeling raw and deeply ashamed. The other women in the tent saw it all. But there are no recriminations, no "I told you so." The older woman looks at you with a kind of weary sympathy. "It is hardest with the little ones," she says, her voice raspy. "They do not understand the law. They only understand the law." Her words are a small comfort, but they don't erase the image of your brother's crumpled face. The law is not an abstract concept anymore. It has a price. And the price is the pain on a child's face, the denial of the most basic human gesture of comfort. You wrap your arms around yourself, a peer substitute for the hug you held and give. Your own body, for the first time, feels like a cage. It is not just a source of shame or inconvenience. It is a weapon that you could accidentally use against the people you love most. The days in the tent have a way of blurring together, a hazy continuum of waiting. But there is one day of the week that stands apart, a day when your exclusion feels sharper, more profound. It is the Sabbath, the day of rest, the holiest day of the week. Back in your normal life, the Sabbath is a welcome reprieve. Preparations begin the day before. The best food is cooked, the house is cleaned, and everyone puts on their best clothes. It's a day for family, for community, and for God. Work ceases and a special kind of quiet, a highlight of the day, is the gathering at the sanctuary. It's a communal act of devotion, a reaffirmation of your people's covenant with the divine. But for you in the tent, the Sabbath is just another day of exile, only loneler. You wake up not to the usual bustle of a working day, but to a deeper quiet. The sounds from the village are different. There is no clang of a blacksmith's hammer, no rhythmic thud of a pestle grinding grain. There is only the low murmur of voices as families walk together towards the sanctuary on the hill. From the entrance of your tent, you can see them. You recognize your neighbors, dressed in their finest, their faces scrubbed clean. You see your own family. Your brother's walking beside him. Your mother is with them today, her own cycle not coinciding with the holy day this time. They pass by, a complete unit, on their way to the place you cannot go. The law is explicit. Your state of ritual impurity bars you completely from the sacred grounds. To even approach would be a grave offense. The divine presence, which on this day is felt most strongly by your community, is the one thing you must actively avoid. It feels like the whole world is turning towards the light, and you are commanded to remain in the shadows. God, it seems, has turned his back on you. Inside the tent, the mood is subdued. The other women feel it too. The usual quiet tasks, the spinning, the mending, the carving are set aside. It is the Sabbath for you too in a way. You are also commanded to rest. But your rest is not one of peaceful communion, it is an empty, hollow rest. One of the most debated questions among scholars of religion is the emotional and theological weight of this exclusion. Was it seen as a punishment, as if the woman had done something wrong, or was it perceived as a neutral, almost physical reality, like a magnet repelling another magnet? Some interpretations suggest that the woman's state during nidda was considered a form of death symbolism, the loss of an unfertilized egg representing a potential life that did not come to be. Conversely, was the ultimate place of life. The two states were simply metaphysically incompatible. This viewpoint removes the sense of personal fault, but it doesn't remove the sting of being cast out. You sit with Miriam near the dying embers of the morning fire. Do you ever wonder, you ask, your voice quiet, if he is angry with us? Miriam pokes at the ashes with a stick. She is silent for a long time. I do not think of it as anger, she says finally, not looking at you. The river is not angry that it cannot be the mountain. They each have their own nature. This is our nature. For a time, each month, we are like the dark side of the moon. We are still there, but we are not lit by the same light. It is not a punishment. It is just the turning of the sky. Her words are a strange comfort. They are poetic, a piece of folk theology designed to make an unbearable rule bearable. It reframes your exclusion not as a personal failing, but as part of a cosmic order. It's a beautiful, resilient piece of philosophy born from necessity. You learn an interesting related tidbit about sacredness and impurity. In many ancient cultures, the two concepts were not always polar opposites. Sometimes they were two sides of the same coin. Something could be so intensely sacred, so full of divine power, that it became taboo, dangerous for an ordinary person to approach, much like an object that is unclean. A holy relic and accursed object could, in a practical sense, be subject to the same rules of avoidance. This suggests that your state isn't necessarily filthy in a modern sense, but rather charged with a potent, chaotic, and uniquely female sacredness that had to be insulated from the structured, male-dominated sacredness of the official sanctuary. Later, the families returned from the service. You hear their cheerful voices, the sounds of a community bound together by a shared experience. They will go home to their Sabbath meal, to an afternoon of rest and talk. Your mother will bring your portion to the stone, another silent transaction. It has become the day that most powerfully reminds you of your disconnection from both. As the days crawl by, you find yourself wondering where these all-encompassing rules come from. They are not just your mother's personal habits or the village's quirky customs. They have the weight of absolute authority. They are spoken of as the law, a force as fundamental as gravity. One afternoon, sitting in the shade of the tent, you ask Miriam, who decided these things. Was it the first elder of Routledge king from long ago? Miriam looks up from the garment she is patching. It is not the law of men, she says, with a conviction that surprises you. It is the law of God. She tells you that the village priest has a scroll, a precious, painstakingly copied text, that contains the words God spoke to the great prophet of your people, generations ago. In that scroll are the commandments that govern all aspects of life: how to make offerings, what foods are permitted, how to treat your neighbor, and woven amongst them, the laws of the clean and the unclean. This is a pivotal realization for you. These rules aren't arbitrary social conventions. They are believed to be divine writ. To violate them isn't just a social faux pas, it's a sin, an act of disobedience against the creator of the universe. This explains the deep, serious piety with which everyone, your mother, the elders, even Miriam, treats them. They are not just navigating a social code, they are participating in a sacred covenant. The texts Miriam is referring to are what scholars today would recognize as parts of the Hebrew Bible, specifically the book of Leviticus. This book is famous for its dense, detailed legal codes, which cover everything from animal sacrifices to skin diseases too, of course. The laws of Leviticus 15 lays it out in stark detail. A woman in her menstrual period is unclean for 7 days, and anyone or anything she touches becomes unclean until evening. It is a foundational text for these practices in ancient Judaism. You try to imagine it, a man of God, centuries ago, writing these words on a piece of cured animal skin. Did he know how his words would echo through time, reaching down to this very tent, to govern your body, your movements, your every interaction? The idea is staggering. A few lines of ink on a scroll have become the invisible walls of your temporary prison. Now, here's a fascinating wrinkle that many people don't know. While the written law in a text like Leviticus is stark and clear, ancient societies also had a thriving and powerful tradition of oral law. This was a vast body of interpretation, debate, and supplementary rulings passed down from teacher to student over generations. These oral traditions often built fences around the written law, adding extra precautions to ensure the core commandment would never be broken. The written law might simply say do not touch. The oral law would then elaborate, defining what constitutes touch, and might prohibit things like passing objects from hand to hand, just to be safe. What your mother taught you in the dark storeroom was likely a blend of the core, written law and generations of this unwritten, practical, female-transmitted oral law. This distinction is crucial because it's where a lot of the nuance and, some might argue, the extra burdens came from. Academics are still in deep debate over how these two forms of law interacted. Was the oral law a faithful application of the written, or did it sometimes take on a life of its own, becoming more stringent than the original text ever intended when your mother told you to set a cup down for your father to pick up? That specific choreography is a product of this interpretive tradition, designed to prevent an accidental breach of the core rule. The existence of a written divine law changes everything for you. It means these rules are not open to question. You can't argue with your mother that they are unfair. You can't complain to the village elder that they are inconvenient. You would be arguing with God himself. The law's divine origin gives it an unassailable authority that cements its place in your society. You look at the other women in the tent. The older woman, her hands gnarled with age, still working her spindle. The baker's wife, putting the finishing touches on her small wooden bird. They are not just following custom. In their own minds, they are performing a difficult, recurring act of religious devotion. They are upholding their side of the covenant. By separating themselves, by accepting their temporary exile, they are protecting the sanctity of their community and showing their obedience to their God. This adds a layer of profound and tragic dignity to their situation. They are not merely victims of a patriarchal system. They are active participants in a theological drama, playing a difficult role that they believe has been assigned to them by the highest possible authority. And now, you are one or just a girl who has been sent away. You are an actress in a divine play, and you are just beginning to learn your lines. As the initial shock and loneliness begin to fade into a dull, persistent take, something unexpected happens. You start to find a strange, new rhythm within the confines of the tent. The physical and social barriers that cut you off from the main village also create a unique, insular world within these goat hair walls. You are in a state of exile, but you are not alone in it. You are, for the first time in your life, in a space and time in your life, in a space entirely populated and run by women. This is the other side of the coin of segregation. While the laws of Nida were almost certainly not created with the intent of female empowerment, they inadvertently created a recurring, temporary women's republic, a space free from the demands of husbands, fathers, sons, and male-dominated society at large. The conversations which at first seemed sparse and utilitarian begin to deepen. In the absence of men, the women's talk flows into different channels. One afternoon, the baker's wife, whose name you learn is Rachel, speaks of her fear. Her first child was stillborn, and she has not conceived since. In the village, this would be a topic for hushed, pitying whispers. Here in the tent, the older woman, Shifra, sets down her spindle and listens. She doesn't offer platitudes. She tells a story of her own sister who was barren for 10 years before finally having a daughter. She speaks of herbal remedies, of specific prayers, of a particular shrine known for its blessings of fertility. This is a conversation that could not happen at the well, where men might overhear, where reputations are currency. Here, in this sealed-off community of shared experience, a different kind of honesty is possible. You listen, absorbing knowledge that is passed only from woman to woman. This is practical wisdom, medical law, and emotional support, all tangled together. You also discover a hidden economy of skill. Miriam, you learn, is not just mending old clothes. She is an expert weaver, and she uses her time here to work on her own intricate designs, free from the constant interruptions of her household. Rachel's wood carving is not just a hobby. She trades the small, beautiful animals she makes with a traveling merchant for things her family needs. Shifra's skill with the spindle is legendary. The thread she spins is finer and stronger than anyone else's. They have turned this time of ritual uselessness into a time of productivity on artistry. This has led some revisionist historians and feminist scholars to propose a radical reinterpretation of the menstrual hut. Instead of viewing it solely as a prison, they ask, could it also have been, at times, a sanctuary, a place of respite from the physical and emotional labor of daily life, a place where women could form powerful bonds, share forbidden knowledge, and exercise a small degree of autonomy and economic power. This view is controversial, as it risks romanticizing a practice rooted in concepts of impurity and female subjugation. The truth, as you are experiencing it, is not one or the other. It is both. The tent is a prison. You are lonely and you miss your family. But it is also a school. You are learning things here you would learn nowhere else. You learn a slightly off-color joke from Rachel that makes you blush and laugh. You learn from Schiffer how to properly tension thread on a spindle. You learn from Miriam how to read the clouds to predict rain. You are witnessing a form of sorority, an ancient sisterhood forged in a shared recurring trial. One of the most peculiar and memorable details of your time here is the smell. The tent has its own unique scent, a mix of wood smoke, dust, wool, and the ever-present, faint, metallic tang of blood. At first it was alien and unsettling, but now it has become the smell of this temporary home. It is the smell of the Women's Republic. In a strange way, it's a smell of safety, of a place where your current state is the norm, not the exception. You are not the odd one out here. You find yourself relaxing in a way you couldn't have imagined. You don't have to be constantly vigilant about where you sit, what you touch. You can lean against Miriam as you watch the fire, and she doesn't flinch away. You can share a joke with Rachel without worrying about social propriety. The intense self-consciousness that gripped you in the first few days begins to loosen its hold. Your perspective begins to shift. You are still an outcast from the main village, but you are now a citizen of this smaller temporary village. It has its own rules, its own leaders, its own economy, its own culture. It is a world built by women, for women, in the space that men have declared off limits. It is a complex, contradictory place, a product of oppression, that has become in some ways a space of freedom. You are still counting the days until you can leave, but you now know that when you do, you will be leaving something behind, not just escaping from it. Finally, on the morning of the 8th day, you wake with a new feeling, anticipation. You check the small cloth you wear, as you have every morning. For the past day, it has been clean. According to the law your mother explained, 7 full days must pass since the bleeding began. Now, on the 8th day, provided you are clear, your period of separation is over. But you can't just walk back into the village. Your return to society is not a simple step, but a formal ritual process. You have to be reborn into the world of the clean. This process is centered around one of the most powerful and symbolic substances in your world, living water. This isn't the water from the communal well, which is stagnant, contained. Living water, or mayhem hay, must come from a source that flows naturally, a river, a stream, or a natural spring. It is seen as pure, and a direct gift from the earth, possessing a unique spiritual power to cleanse and renew. Miriam, who is also ready to be cleansed today, guides you. The other women in the tent, whose cycles started later than yours, call out goodbyes. See you next month, Rachel says with a wry smile, a statement that is both a joke and a certainty. You and Miriam walk not towards the village, but away from it, towards the narrow, winding stream that marks the edge of your community as territory. As you walk, you feel a sense of lightness. You are leaving the tent, the site of your exile, behind you. The world already looks brighter, the colors more vivid. The stream is a lifeline in this dry land. Its banks are lined with reeds and a few hardy trees, a slash of green against the dusty brown hills. The water runs clear and cool over a bed of smooth stones. It is a place of quiet beauty. This is where you will be purified. The ritual is called Taboo or immersion. Miriam explains the process, which she has done countless times. You must be completely clean in a physical sense, before you can become clean in a ritual sense. You scrub your skin with a harsh soap made from olive oil and lye, making sure there is no dirt under your fingernails, no mud between your toes. Every part of you must be ready to meet the living water. Then, you must immerse yourself completely. Every part of your body, every strand of your hair must be underwater at the same time. If even a single hair floats on the surface, the immersion is ended, and you must do it again. You wade into the cool stream. The shock of the cold is a jolt, a sharp awakening. You take a deep breath, and as Miriam watches from the bank to ensure you do it correctly, you plunge beneath the surface. For a brief moment, the world is gone. There's only the rush of water in your ears, the press of it against your skin, the surreal, blurry green light filtering through the stream. It is a moment of total sensory suspension. It feels like being in the womb or in the grave. It is a moment of non-existence, a symbolic death of your unclean self. Then you push up, breaking the surface, gasping in the warm air. You are dripping, shivering, but you feel new. It's more than just being wet. It's a profound psychological shift. The water has washed away not dirt, but a state of being. The label of nidda, which has clung to you for 7 days, has been dissolved. This practice of ritual immersion in a mikveh, a dedicated ritual bath, or a natural body of water, is one of the most in Judaism practiced to this day. The theological reasoning is beautiful and complex. It is not considered a magical act, but a spiritual one. The person entering the water is a vessel by immersing. They are emptying themselves of their previous spiritual state and emerging, ready to be filled with a new one, in this case, a state of ritual purity. There's a fascinating, almost poetic detail in the laws surrounding the construction of a mikveh. It must be connected to a natural source of water, like a spring or a cistern of rainwater. It cannot be filled with bucket-head-drawn water. This reinforces the idea that the purification comes not from a human act, but from a connection to a natural divine source. Your stream is a natural mikveh, the original model. As you pull on your clean clothes, the normal clothes of your daily life, which you brought with you, you feel an incredible sense of relief. The weight you'll have been carrying on your shoulders for a week is gone. You look at your hands, your body. They are the same as they were an hour ago, but in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of God, and in your own mind, they are utterly transformed. You are no longer a source of contamination. You are no longer an outcast. You and Miriam walk back towards the village. The path looks different now. It is no longer a path of exile, but a path of return. You are about to re-enter your life. The sounds of the village are no longer a muffled, painful reminder of what you are missing. They are a welcome, a call home. You have been through the fire, or rather, the water, and you have come out the other side. The walk back to the village is surreal. The sun feels warmer on your skin. The breeze more refreshing. It's as if a dull, grey film has been peeled away from the world, revealing the true, vibrant colours that were there all along. You and Miriam part ways at the edge of the village, she heading to her home, you to yours. There's no grand farewell, just a simple nod of solidarity. You are veterans of the same quiet war now, returning to your separate lives. As you walk through the familiar lanes, you brace yourself for your not sure what. Scrutiny, lingering avoidance, but the first person you see is a neighbor, an old man who is usually mending nets by his doorway. He looks up as you pass, squints, and gives you a simple, gruff nod. "The day is warm," he says. It's the most normal, mundane greeting imaginable, and it almost makes you want to cry. H.E.S. not stepping back. H.E.S. not averting his eyes. He is speaking to you as a person, a member of the community. His casual acknowledgement is the first official sign that your exile is over. You are visible again. You reach the doorway of your own home. It looks exactly the same, yet you feel entirely different standing before it. A week ago, you left this house shrouded in shame and fear. Now, you return to it and renewed. You take a deep breath, the air filled with the familiar smells of your own hearth baking bread and wood smoke, and you step across the threshold. Your mother is there, turning from the fire. She sees you, and her face, which has been a mask of careful neutrality for a week, breaks into a warm, open smile. She comes to you, and without a word, she wraps her arms around you. The touch is electric. After 7 days of being untouchable, of being a source of contamination, this simple, encompassing hug is overwhelming. It's a physical confirmation of your return. It's the closing of a painful circle. You bury your face in her shoulder, breathing in her familiar scent, and feel the tension you've been holding in your body for a week finally begin to dissolve. This embrace is the opposite of the moment with your brother. It is not a transgression, but a restoration. Your father looks up from the tool he is sharpening. He gives you a long, appraising look and then a slow nod of approval. Your brothers, who had been conditioned to give you a wide berth, now greet you with the casual, annoying affection of siblings. The invisible walls within your own home have crumbled. In some more formal or wealthy families, particularly in later eras with a centralized temple, this return to purity would be capped off with an offering. After a period of uncleanness, moles sacrificed to turtle deitess, or young pigeons to a priest to finalize her re-entry into the sacred community. While your family might not perform such a formal ritual, your mother marks the occasion in her own way. You see her take a handful of the freshly ground flour and cast it into the fire. A silent, personal prayer of thanks for your safe return to the fold. It's a small but powerful gesture that frames your purification not just as a personal event, but as a matter of the family's spiritual well-being. You sit down on a mat, any mat, and your mother hands you a piece of warm bread. You take it directly from her hand. The simple, thoughtless act feels momentous. You are no longer navigating a minefield of ritual law. You are simply home. And yet something has changed inside you. As you watch your family go about their routines, there is a tiny part of you that feels separate, like an observer. You have been somewhere they haven't. You carry the memory of the tent, the smell of it, the quiet industry of the women, the secret conversations. You look at your mother, your father, your brothers, and you see them with new eyes. You have seen the world from the outside, and it has given you a new perspective on the inside. Historians and psychologists still debate the long-term effects of this cyclical separation and return. Did it create a recurring trauma, a sense of being fundamentally other-ed that a woman could never fully shake, or did the routine nature of it, the fact that every woman went through it, build a unique form of resilience, a deep understanding of the rhythms of life, loss, and renewal? Was it a source of lifelong anxiety, or a foundation for a powerful, female-specific identity? Looking around at your familiar home, you feel the answer is confusingly both. You feel the joy of return, but you also feel the faint scar of the exile. That evening, for the first time in a week, you all eat together, dipping bread into a shared bowl. The casual intimacy of the family meal, something you once took for granted, now feels like a profound blessing. You are back. But you are not the same girl who left. You are a woman who now understands the invisible borders that define her world. And you know, with a certainty that sits deep in your bones, that in about 3 weeks' time, you will have to leave again. The months turn, each one bringing the same now familiar cycle, a few weeks of normal life, followed by 7 days of exile in the tent, and the final, cleansing return through the waters of the stream. The process, which was once terrifying and strange, becomes routine. You learn the rhythms of the tent, the faces of the other women who share your temporary home. And then a new chapter of your life begins. Your father arranges a marriage for you. Your husband, David, is a good man, a farmer from a nearby village. He is strong, his hands calloused from working the land, and he has a quiet, steady presence. The marriage is a practical arrangement, as most are, a joining of two families to ensure prosperity and continuity. But there is a kindness in his eyes that gives you hope. After the wedding, a simple ceremony of promises and blessings, you move to his home, to a new village, a new family. And you discover that the laws of Nida, which you had finally learned to navigate within your own home, take on a new and far more intimate dimension in your marriage. The rule of no touching is no longer about avoiding your father or brothers. It is about separating from your husband, the person with whom you are meant to build a life of intimacy and partnership. The 7 days of separation each month create a stark, recurring division in your shared existence. Your new home is small, just one main room for living and sleeping. This makes the physical separation both more challenging and more pronounced. You can't simply retreat to another part of the house. Instead, you have to separate sleeping mats, and during your time of impurity, you are careful to keep a clear space between them. Your life together becomes a calendar of touch and no touch. There are the white days when you are clean and can live as a normal couple, sharing a blanket, touching freely. And there are the red days, the 7 days of separation when you become roommates living under a strict set of rules. You learn to communicate across this invisible divide. He needs a tool that is on your side of the room. You can't hand it to him. You must pick it up, place it on the floor in the space between you, and he will retrieve it. It's a clumsy, careful dance that you both must learn. At meals you eat from separate bowls. Every interaction is filtered through this lens of ritual law. This practice, known in later Jewish tradition as Taharat HaMishpach, family purity, is often presented by its adherents as a positive force in a marriage. The argument is that this cyclical period of physical separation forces a couple to connect on other levels, to talk, to build emotional and intellectual intimacy. It prevents them from taking physical affection for granted and makes the reunion after the separation all the more sweet and sacred. Proponents believe it keeps the marital relationship fresh and exciting. And there are moments when you feel a glimmer of this. In the evenings, during your separation, you and David sit on opposite sides of the hearth and you talk. You tell him stories of your childhood. He tells you about his struggles with a stubborn plot of land. In these moments, you connect with your words, your minds, your shared humor. But there are other times when the separation feels like a chasm. A time when you are sad, and the simple, comforting touch of your husband's hand on your shoulder is forbidden. A time when he is exhausted from the fields, and you cannot offer the physical comfort of a shared embrace. The law, in these moments, feels less like a tool for building intimacy and more like a cruel, arbitrary barrier. It inserts itself into the most private, vulnerable moments of your life together. Here's a curious and debated aspect of this law some historical interpretations suggest. It was also seen as a primitive form of family planning. By prohibiting relations for roughly 12-14 days of a woman's cycle, the 7 clean days of her period plus 7 clean days some traditions required before immersion, it inadvertently concentrated sexual activity, or at the time of ovulation, theoretically increasing the chances of conception. Arguing that its primary purpose was always purely about ritual purity, not reproductive strategy. The demographic effect, if any, was an unintended byproduct. You discover the law has its own vocabulary within your marriage. You learn to tell David that your time is approaching without using explicit words. A simple phrase, "I will be preparing my own mat tonight," is all that is needed. An entire, complex reality is contained in that one sentence. Your relationship with your husband becomes defined by this rhythm. It is a tide that pulls you apart and then pushes you back together, month after month. You experience both sides of it. You feel the truth in the idea that the separation makes the reunion sweeter. The night after you return from your immersion in the stream is always a night of gentle, rediscovered joy. But you also feel the sharp loneliness of being close but untouchable, of having a partner who, for a quarter of your life, you are forbidden from holding. Your marriage is not just a contract between two people. It's a contract between two people and a demanding, ever-present divine law. The years pass, marked by the steady rhythm of planting and harvest, of white days and red days. Your bond with your husband deepens, a quiet partnership built in the spaces between the rules. And then, the greatest joy and the greatest terror of a woman's life arrives. You are pregnant. The first sign is the absence of the familiar. Your monthly bleeding does not come. The first month, you wait with a knot of anticipation in your stomach. When the second month passes and still there is no blood, you know a new life is growing inside you. The news fills your small house with a quiet, profound joy. A child is a blessing from God, a sign of favor, the continuation of a family line. It is the fulfillment of your purpose as a woman and a wife. Your husband's eyes shine with a new pride. Your mother-in-law, who had been watching you with a hawk's eye, finally softens, her stern face breaking into a rare, genuine smile. Pregnancy grants you a temporary reprieve from the cycle that has dominated your life. For 9 months you are free. There is no monthly separation, no trip to the tent, no ritual immersion. You are in a constant state of ritual normalcy. You can touch your husband freely any day, any time. You can enter the sanctuary courtyard without a second thought. It's a long, unbroken stretch of belonging, and it feels like a holiday. But this freedom is shadowed by the knowledge of what is to come. Childbirth, the very act that is celebrated as the pinnacle of a woman's life, is also considered one of the most potent sources of ritual impurity, second only to contact with death. Your mother-in-law and the other older women in the village begin to prepare you, not just for the aphysical ordeal of ritual separation that will follow. The rules they explain are different and even more stringent than those for menstruation. When you bring for the child, your mother-in-law tells you, her voice heavy with the authority of experience, you will be unclean, as you are in the days of your niddah. But it's more complicated than that. She explains the arcane, baffling distinction in the law. If you bear a son, you shall be unclean for 7 days. On the 8th day he will be circumcised. Then you shall continue in the blood of your purifying for 33 more days. You shall touch no holy thing, nor come into the sanctuary, until the days of your purifying are fulfilled. You do the math in your head. 7 plus 33, 40 days. For the birth of a son you will be in a state of partial or full impurity for 40 days. And if you bear a daughter, she continues, then you shall be unclean for 2 weeks, as in your separation. And you shall continue in the blood of your purifying for 66 days. 2 weeks plus 66 days. 80 days. The logic is bewildering. Why would the birth of a daughter render you unclean for twice as long as the birth of a son, you ask your mother-in-law? But she just shakes her head. It is the law, she says, the final, unarguable answer to all questions. Scholars and theologians have been debating this question for millennia, and frankly, nobody has a universally accepted answer. This is one of the great theological mysteries of these ancient purity codes. Some have argued that it reflects the patriarchal structure of the society and male birth is more valued, and thus the mother is restored to the community more quickly. Others propose a more complex, symbolic theory that since a daughter is a future potential source of life and, therefore, future ritual impurity through her own cycles and births, her arrival creates a more potent state of impurity in the mother. Another theory suggests the female infant herself was considered to be in a state of impurity, requiring a longer purification period for the mother who was in constant contact with her. None of these explanations are fully satisfying, and they remain a subject of intense academic argument. For you, the theories are irrelevant. The reality is the number, 40 or 80. A month and a half or nearly 3. It's a daunting prospect. The 7 days and the 10th each month now seem like a brief, fleeting holiday in comparison. As your body grows heavier as you feel the first flutter of movement inside you, your joy is mixed with a quiet sense of dread. You are nurturing a miracle, a new life that is inextricably linked to your own body. But the price of performing this miracle, the price of bringing this new soul into the world, is the longest period of social and religious isolation you have ever had to face. The very act that confirms your value to the community will also, paradoxically, cast you out of it for a long, long time. Your greatest achievement will be your greatest contamination. The final days of your pregnancy are a blur of waiting and weariness. Then, the pains begin, first as a dull ache, then as powerful, crusting waves that consume your entire world. The village midwife, an older woman with calm eyes and capable, wrinkled hands, is summoned. Your husband is sent outside. In the dim, firelit interior of your home, surrounded by your mother-in-law and the midwife you labor. It is an experience of profound, primal physicality. There is sweat, and groaning, and blood. And then, finally a cry. A new, fragile voice cutting through the thick air. The midwife cleans the baby and wraps him in a linen cloth. It is a son, she announces. And a wave of relief washes over you, so potent it almost eclipses your exhaustion. A son. Your husband will be overjoyed. And your time of uncleanness will be 40 days, not 80. Even in this moment of transcendent joy, the law is there, a silent accountant tallying up the days of your exile. You are a mother. You hold your tiny, perfect son, and your heart swells with a love so fierce it frightens you. He is a part of you, a miracle you have brought into being. But from the moment he is born, the clock starts ticking. You are now in your 7 days of deep impurity, identical to your monthly nidda. You are confined to your home, which for the next week becomes your version of the menstrual tent. You cannot touch your husband. He can look at the baby, his face alight with wonder, but he cannot touch you. A visitor who comes to congratulate the new parents must be careful not to sit where you have been sitting. The joy of new motherhood is thus immediately tangled in a web of restrictions. You are performing the most vital role a woman can, nurturing a new life, yet you are simultaneously treated as a source of ritual contagion. After 7 days, a new milestone. On the 8th day, your son is brought into the covenant of his people through the ritual of circumcision. It's a small, solemn ceremony performed in your home by a skilled practitioner. Your husband holds the baby, his face a mixture of pride and pain sympathy. You watch from a distance, a loving but ritually separated observer. The circumcision marks the end of your first, most intense week of impurity. Now you enter the second phase, the 33 days in the blood of your purifying. During this time, the rules relax slightly, but you are still not fully clean. The best way to describe your status is semi-quarantined. What does this mean in practice? You are no longer considered a source of contagion for other people or objects in your home. You can touch your husband. You can share a meal, a bed. The normal intimacies of marriage are restored, which is a profound relief. However, you are still barred from the sacred. You cannot enter the sanctuary courtyard. You cannot touch any holy thing, which could include offerings, special tithes, or anything consecrated to God. You are fit for the domestic sphere, but not for the divine one. This distinction between different types of impurity is a feature of many ancient legal systems. It's not a simple on-off switch. There are gradations, levels of severity, each with its own set of rules and required duration. This system, while seemingly complex, allowed for a more nuanced social reality, preventing a new mother from being completely isolated for over a month. But even with the partial restoration, the separation feels long. For 33 more days, you are cut off from the communal religious life of your village. When your neighbors go to the sanctuary for a festival or a special Sabbath service, you must stay behind. You are a mother, a celebrated and vital member of the community, but you are still marked, still kept at a distance from the divine. The days are filled with the overwhelming, all-consuming tasks of caring for a newborn. The feeding, the washing, the sleepless nights. Your son is a constant, demanding presence. Your love for him is a fierce, protective fire. Yet, woven through this beautiful, exhausting time is the quiet, persistent awareness of your own ritual state. You are living in a state of extended spiritual limbo. You watch your son grow, his features becoming more defined, his cries growing stronger. He is a symbol of life, of vitality, of divine blessing. And yet, his very existence is the cause of your long separation. It is the ultimate contradiction of your faith and your biology. The sacred act of creation renders you, its vessel, temporarily unfit for the sacred. The joy and the isolation are two sides of the same coin, and for 40 long days and nights, you must learn to hold both at the same time. As you sit in the quiet of your home during the long days of your purification, nursing your son, you have a lot of time to think. The same question keeps circling in your mind, a question you would never dare to speak aloud. Why? Why does the blood of life, the very substance that nourishes a child in the womb, render a woman unclean? Why is the monthly sign of her fertility a source of separation? Why is the act of birth, the greatest miracle, treated with such caution, as if it were a dangerous contagion? You are living the reality of these laws every day, and yet their fundamental logic remains a mystery. One way to understand it is to see it all as stemming from a profound, primal fear of blood. In your world, blood is a powerful, ambiguous substance. It is the essence of life. A healthy animal is full of it. A bleeding person is losing their life force. When a sacrifice is made at the sanctuary, the blood is the most sacred part, dashed against the altar as a gift to God. From this perspective, any unsanctioned flow of blood, that is, any bleeding that is not part of a formal, ritual sacrifice, is a dangerous trespass. It's a leakage of sacred power into the profane world. menstruation and the bleeding of childbirth fall into this category. It's not that the blood itself is dirty, but that it is wholly in a chaotic, untamed way. It's a force that has slipped out of its proper container. The laws of separation, then, are a way of containing this wild sacredness, of preventing it from running amok and disrupting the carefully ordered world of the village and the sanctuary. But as you look at your sleeping son, another possibility emerges. Perhaps it's not just about fear. Perhaps it's about order. Your society is built on categories, on distinctions. There is the clean and the unclean, the holy and the profane, day and night, man and woman, the sanctuary and the whole. Order is maintained by keeping these categories separate and respecting the boundaries between them. A woman's body, in its natural cycles, constantly threatens to blur these boundaries. Menstruation is a liminal state, a state of in-between. It is a potential life that was not realized, a symbolic brush with death within life. Childbirth is another liminal event, a moment when a new soul crosses over from the unseen world into this one. These are moments of immense power and cosmological significance. By cordoning off the woman experiencing them, the society is attempting to manage and control these powerful, boundary-crossing moments. Structured response to what is an inherently messy, unpredictable, and powerful biological reality, they impose order on the chaos of life. This is a classic debate in the field of anthropology, famously articulated by thinkers like Mary Douglas, who argued that concepts of dirt and impurity are fundamentally about matter out of place. Uncleanness is not about hygiene, it's about things that transgress categorical boundaries. A woman's blood is out of place when it is not contained within the body or being offered on an altar. The rules are a society's way of tidying up a messy existential reality. There's also a more cynical, and perhaps simpler, explanation that flickers through your mind. These laws are enforced by men, interpreted by male priests, and largely benefit a patriarchal social structure. By defining the uniquely female experiences of menstruation and childbirth as ritually impure, the system places women in a recurring state of social and religious disability. It reinforces the idea that the male body is the normal, stable, and clean default, while the female body is cyclical, unpredictable, and periodically unfit. It is a powerful, subtle tool for maintaining male authority in both the religious and domestic spheres. Which one is it? Is it a primal fear of blood, a sophisticated system for maintaining symbolic order, or a two-love patriarchal control? You look down at your son again, his tiny hand curled around your finger. The answer, you suspect, is not one or the other. It's all of them, tangled together like threads in a weaver's loom. You can feel the ancient fear in the way your husband hesitates to touch a bowl you've used. You can see the logic of order in the predictable, calendrical nature of your separations. And you can feel the weight of male authority in the fact that your testimony in a dispute would be worth less than a man. The system is a complex machine, built of many parts, all working together. And your body is one of its primary gears. You don't have the power to change the machine, only to live within it, to find your moments of joy and connection in the spaces between its grinding teeth. Your world is small, contained by the hills you can see from your rooftop. You know your village, your husband's village, and the path between them. The great, sprawling world beyond is a place of myths and merchants' tales. But the ideas that govern your life are not unique. They are a single stream in a great, global river of human thought. If you could fly like a bird eastward, across deserts and mountains, you would eventually come to another ancient, fertile land, the valley of the Indus and the plains of the Ganges. There, in a world that looks very different from your own, you would find women living by a strangely familiar set of rules. Let's imagine for a moment we can lift you from your small home and place you in the context of an ancient Hindu village. The air here is heavier, thick with humidity and the scent of unfamiliar spices and flowers. The people dress in brightly colored cloth. The gods have different names and different forms, some with many arms, some with the heads of animals. The sanctuary is not a simple tent or stone building, but a temple carved with a riot of divine figures, vibrant and full of movement. It feels like a completely different universe. And yet, as you watch the women of this village, you would see echoes of your own life. You would see a young woman during her monthly bleeding, who is not allowed to enter the temple. You would see her forbidden from participating in puja, the daily rituals of worship. She would not be allowed to prepare food for her family, for fear that her state would pollute the meal. She would sleep separately, on a simple mat on the floor. This concept in Hinduism is known as a state of ritual impurity. And just like in your world, it is deeply connected to the core events of life and death: menstruation, childbirth, and contact with a corpse. A woman in her period is considered to be in this state, and the rules of separation she follows are strikingly similar to your own. She avoids physical contact. She uses separate utensils. She is barred from sacred spaces. You would also see a new mother, cradling her baby, living in a state of extended seclusion. This period, called soothe, is a time of ritual impurity for the entire immediate family following a birth. The duration can vary by caste and region, but the principle is the same. The family is temporarily cut off from normal social and religious life. They cannot visit the temple or host guests. The mother, being at the center of this event, bears the most stringent restrictions. And, just as in your world, there have been traditions where the birth of a daughter results in a longer period of impurity than the birth of a son. The parallel is eerie, a shared logic bubbling up into vastly different cultures. Now here's a fascinating unspecific detail from some traditions in the Indian subcontinent, particularly in rural Nepal, in a practice known as chho. This tradition, an extreme form of menstrual exclusion, forces women and girls to sleep in a small, often windowless hut or even an animal shed during their period. They are forbidden from touching other people, cattle, or fruit-bearing trees, with the belief that their touch would anger the gods, make people sick, or cause the fruit to fall. While this is an extreme and now outlawed example, it represents the most severe end of the same spectrum of belief you inhabit. The menstrual hut is not just a historical curiosity from your corner of the world. It is a recurring architectural feature of human belief systems. Why this incredible similarity across thousands of miles and different religions? Historians and anthropologists call this cross-cultural parallelism. It's the idea that different societies, when faced with the same fundamental human experiences, birth, death, the mysteries of the body, often develop remarkably similar symbolic systems to make sense of them. The fear of blood, the desire for social order, the dynamics of patriarchy, these are not unique to your people. They are near universal human themed. It seems that when societies throughout history have looked at the powerful, life-giving, and cyclical nature of the female body, they have often reached for the same tool to manage it: the concept of ritual impurity and the practice of separation. This realization is both comforting and deeply unsettling. It's comforting to know that you are not alone, that women across the world share a version of your experience. Your monthly exile is part of a global story. But it's unsettling because it suggests that this system of belief is not just of your village, but something deeply rooted in the human psyche, something that has sprung up again and again in different soils all over the world. It makes the walls of your own small world feel both thinner and infinitely more powerful at the same time. You are part of something much bigger than you ever imagined, a quiet, global sisterhood of the ritually excluded. You've lived your entire life in a world structured by these laws, a world where female experience is the central pivot point for the rules of purity. But what is it like on the other side of that divide? What is it like to be a man in this system? Your father, your brothers, your husband, from their perspective, this is not a system about their bodies. It's a system of avoidance, a complex set of external rules they must navigate to maintain their own state of ritual cleanliness. Let's step into your husband David's sandals for a day. His life is also governed by your cycle, but in a completely different way. For him, you are a walking calendar. Your physical state dictates his own level of religious observance and social interaction. When you are in your white days, he can live a normal life. But as your time of separation approaches, he must become vigilant. He has to remember not to obsessively reach for your hand. He has to remember to wait for you to set down a cup, rather than taking it from you directly. A single, careless touch would have consequences. He would be rendered unclean until evening. This means he couldn't go to the sanctuary to pray. If he were a priest, the consequences would be even more severe, potentially barring him from his duties for a longer period. So for him, your impurity is a constant. low-level source of anxiety under test of his piety. His spiritual well-being is, in a way, dependent on his ability to successfully avoid contact with you. It's a strange form of reversed responsibility. Your biological state creates a ritual hazard that he must be skilled enough to navigate. This dynamic creates a subtle power structure within the home. During your separation, you are in a state of disability, but you are also, in a strange way, powerful. Your mere presence dictates the movements and actions of the men in your household. They must tiptoe around your uncleanness. This has led some scholars to question if the laws, while oppressive, also granted women a strange kind of negative power, the power to contaminate, the power to control male access to the divine through their own bodies. It's a controversial idea, but one that contains a kernel of truth. You've seen the flicker of fear in a man's eyes when he almost brushes against a woman he knows is in her time. Now, consider the broader social world of men. The public square, the council of elders, the inner sanctum of the sanctuary, these are all male spaces, or spaces where men dominate. And their ability to participate in this public, religious, and political life depends on their ritual purity. A man who has had a nocturnal emission, for example, is also considered unclean until he bathes and evening comes. A man who touches a corpse is unclean for 7 days. His life is also punctuated by these states. However, the key difference is that for a man, these states are occasional or caused by external factors. For you, a woman, the state of impurity is cyclical, inevitable, and arises from the very nature of your healthy, functioning body. It is a core part of your identity for the majority of your life. For a man, it is a temporary inconvenience. This is a fundamental asymmetry in the system. Here's a small, curious detail about male impurity that highlights this difference. The laws in Leviticus describe various bodily discharges that can make a man unclean. These laws are detailed and specific, but they never achieved the same level of social and theological significance as the laws of Niddah. The reason, historians argue, is simple: they are not cyclical. They do not define a man's life month after month, year after year. They do not form the basis for a recurring social segregation. The problem of male impurity was minor and easily managed, while the problem of female impurity was a central, organizing principle of the entire society. From a man's perspective, these laws are not about shame or biology. They are about order and maintaining a right relationship with God. By respecting the separation from his wife, a man like David is not shaming her. In his mind, he is doing something deeply pious. He is honoring God's law. He is protecting the sacred space of the sanctuary from contamination. He is upholding the cosmic order that keeps the world from falling into chaos. He is being a good husband and a good, observant man. He might feel frustrated by the inconvenience. He might feel a pang of loneliness during the nights you sleep apart. But he is unlikely to question the fundamental righteousness of the system itself. It is simply the way the world works, ordained by God. He sees his role as the guardian of the family's ritual purity, and his primary duty is to keep the unclean from mixing with the clean. It's a role that gives him authority and responsibility. The system that confines you also defines and empowers him. The seasons turn into years, and the years stack up like stones in a wall. You have more children, a daughter this time, bringing with her the 80-day separation and then another son. Your life is a constant churning cycle. The cycle of the moon in the sky, the cycle of the seasons in the fields, and the unyielding, personal cycle within your own body. This is the long view of your life. It is not a single, dramatic event, but a slow, relentless, repeating war of attrition fought on the battlefield of your own body. It is a life defined by a biological rhythm that your culture has freighted with immense, burdensome meaning. Think of the sheer logistics of it. For roughly 1 week out of every 4, for a span of perhaps 30 years of your life, you are an outcast. That's a quarter of your adult life spent in a state of separation. Add to that the long, multi-month separations after each childbirth. When you tally it all up, the years of your life spent in a state of full or partial ritual impurity are staggering. It's not a minor inconvenience, it's a central, defining feature of your existence. This long-term, Cyclical experience has a profound psychological effect. It shapes your sense of self. From a young age, you learned that a fundamental, natural part of your body was a source of shame and prohibition. You learned to be vigilant, to monitor yourself, to see your own body not as a home, but as a potential liability. This creates a kind of permanent, low-grade dissociation, a feeling of being slightly at odds with your own physical self. You become an expert in the art of concealment. You learn to hide the physical signs of your period, to speak of it only in euphemisms. You learn to manage the pain in discomfort and silence, because to complain would be to draw attention to your forbidden state. You develop a public face and a private reality. The public face is the wife and mother who competently runs her household. The private reality is the woman who is constantly tracking her internal calendar, bracing for the next period of exile. This recurring separation also shapes your relationships. Your marriage to David is a lifelong dance of coming together and pulling apart. You have learned to build intimacy in the gaps, to treasure the white days of connection. But the cyclical absence of physical touch leaves its mark. There is a part of your life, a part of your physical and emotional experience, that he can never truly share or understand. He experiences your nidda as an absence, an inconvenience. You experience it as a state of being. This creates a fundamental, unbridgeable gap between you. The debate among historians and psychologists on this is fascinating and unresolved. Did this lifelong cycle create a deep-seated sense of inferiority in women, or did it, paradoxically, foster a unique form of strength and resilience? Is that surviving and navigating this complex system year after year required immense psychological fortitude? The women of the tent, with their shared knowledge and quiet solidarity, formed a powerful counterculture. You learned from them that you were not alone, that this was the shared lot of all women. This shared struggle could forge powerful bonds and a strong sense of female identity, separate and distinct from the male world. One of the strangest, most poignant details of this long war is the way it inverts the normal process of aging. In most aspects of life, old age brings physical decline and a loss of status. But in the world of ritual purity, the opposite is true. The end of your childbearing years, the cessation of your monthly cycle, is a kind of liberation. Menopause, which in other contexts might be seen as an ending, is for you a permanent entry into the world of the clean. It is the final welcome truce in the long war. But that is still many years away. For now, you are in the thick of it. You are raising your children, running your household, and every month, you pack your small bag and make the familiar walk to the tent of the village. The younger girls, the new initiates, now look to you as one of the veterans. You are the one who shows them where to put their mat, who explains the silent etiquette of the tent, who offers a quiet word comfort when they look lost and afraid. You have become Miriam. You have learned to live two lives at once, the life of the community and the secret life of the tent. You move between them as easily as you move from your house to the well. This duality is your reality. It is the air you breathe. It is the air you breathe. You have forgotten what it feels like to live a single, unbroken life, to inhabit a body that is not at war with the laws of God and man. The river of time flows on, carving deeper lines into your face and silvering your hair. Your children are grown. Your sons have wives of their own, and your daughter is married to a man in a neighboring town. Your hands, once smooth, are now old and stained from a lifetime of grinding grain, weaving cloth, and shaping dough. You are no longer a young wife, or even a mother of young children. You are an elder, a matriarch. And in this new stage of your life, your relationship to the law undergoes its final, most profound transformation. You have entered the long, quiet season of your body's rest. Your monthly bleeding, the rhythm that has dictated the tempo of your life since you were a girl, has ceased. You are now permanently, unchangeably, ritually clean. The sense of freedom is subtle at first, and then it washes over you. There are no more calendars to track. No more packing a small bag for the tent. No more careful choreography of touch in your own home. No more watching the Sabbath procession from a distance. The invisible walls that have structured your entire adult life have dissolved. This is the great paradox you observed as a young woman in this one specific arena. Age brings not limitation, but liberation. While your body may be weaker, your joints stiffer, your ritual status has never been higher. You are now, in a way, equal to the men. You can approach the sanctuary any day you wish. You can touch anyone at any time, without a second thought. You have finally graduated from the school of impurity. And with this new status comes a new role. You are no longer just a follower of the law, you have become one of its guardians. You are now a Shifra, the older, wiser woman in the tent. The young women of the village, your daughters-in-law, your neighbors' daughters now look to you for guidance. When a young girl experiences her first blood, it is you her mother consults. You are the one who recounts the laws, who explains the separation, who offers the same words of comfort and solidarity that were once offered to you. You find yourself repeating the phrases you learned from your mother and from the women in the tent. This is our lot. This is our strength. Do not be afraid. The words feel different in your mouth now, heavier with the weight of lived experience. You become the arbiter of the unwritten, oral law. A young wife comes to you with a question. She had a small spot of blood, but then it vanished. Does it count? Does she need to go to the tent? You listen. You weigh the circumstances against a lifetime of precedent stored in your memory, and you give her your judgment. Your word carries the authority of a village judge. In this specific, female domain, you are the law. This transition from subject to enforcer is a complex psychological turn. For decades, you are the one constrained by these rules. Now, you are part of the structure that imposes them on the next generation. Do you do it with a sense of empathy, remembering the pain and loneliness of the tent, or do you do it with a sense of stern duty, believing that this difficult system is necessary for maintaining order and piety? The truth is, you do it with both. You look at your daughter-in-law, her face filled with the same fear you once felt, and your heart aches with sympathy. You remember the cold nights in the tent, the sting of exclusion. So you speak to her with kindness. You make sure the food sent to her is warm and plentiful. You remind her that she is not alone. But you also believe in the law. It is the framework of your world, the divine order that separates your people from the chaotic pagans you hear about in stories. You believe that observing these separations is an act of devotion, a way of honoring God. You see the laws not as a punishment, but as a difficult, sacred duty. And so you are firm. You ensure the rules are followed correctly. You correct the young women when they are careless. You are upholding the tradition that has been passed down to you, the tradition that, in your mind, holds the world together. This is a common phenomenon observed by sociologists in traditional societies. The people who have been most subject to a particular set of rules often become its most staunch defenders in their later years. It's a way of validating their own life experience, of giving meaning to their past struggles. By teaching the law, you are implicitly saying what I went through mattered. It was not for nothing. You have become a pillar of the community, your authority resting on your age, your experience, and your new, permanent state of ritual purity. You are a living repository of female wisdom, the keeper of the traditions that govern birth life, and the mysterious rhythms of the body. You are no longer at war with the law. You have, in a strange and powerful way, become the law. The years continue to spool out, and your world, once so large and full of daunting futures, begins to shrink again. It contracts to the size of your home, your small garden, the faces of your grandchildren. Your husband, David, is back bent from a lifetime of farming, now rests more than he works. Your life together has settled into a quiet, comfortable rhythm, free from the monthly disruptions that defined your youth and middle age. The long tide of your body has gone out, leaving a peaceful, placid shore. You have now fully inhabited your role as a matriarch for many years. You have guided dozens of young women through their first entries into the world of ritual law. You have overseen the purification rites after the births of your grandchildren. You have become a respected voice in the community, your opinion sought on matters of tradition and domestic life. One cool evening, you are sitting outside your home, watching the last sliver of sun dip below the hills. Your youngest granddaughter, a bright-eyed girl of about 10, comes and sits at your feet. She is on the cusp, the same age you were when you first started noticing the invisible walls of your world. She has been watching her mother, your daughter-in-law, prepare to go to the tent. She looks up at you, her face a knot of confusion. Grandmother, she asks, her voice small, why does mother have to go away? Why is she unclean? It's the same question you asked your own mother a lifetime ago, and now it is your turn to answer. You look down at her innocent, questioning face, and you feel the entire weight of your life experience settle upon you. What do you tell her? Do you give her the simple, orthodox answer? It is the law of God. Do you offer her the poetic folk theology you learned from Miriam, she is like the dark side of the moon? Or do you speak a deeper, more complicated truth? You find yourself pausing, searching for the right words. You are no longer just repeating the lessons you were taught. You are reflecting on a lifetime lived within them. It is not a punishment. You begin, your voice soft and raspy with age. Think of the sanctuary on the hill. It is a holy place, so full of God's power that only the priests can go deep inside. It is not a place for our daily lives. It is set apart. She nods, understanding this. A woman's body, you continue, choosing your words carefully, is also a place of great power. It holds the power to create life. That is a holy power, a power that comes from God. But it is a wild, strong power, like a river in a flood. And when that power is flowing, a woman is set apart. Just like the sanctuary. Not because she is bad or dirty, but because she is for a time too full of a different kind of holiness. This explanation is a product of your own long contemplation. It's a synthesis of the official theology, the folk wisdom of the women, and your own personal need to find dignity and meaning in a system that so often felt like a source of shame. You are reframing impurity, not as a negative state, but as an alternate, powerful form of sacredness. Historians and feminist theologians have explored this very idea, that the concept of impurity in these ancient texts might be better translated as taboo or charged with the dangerous. It's a reading that attempts to restore agency and dignity to the women who lived under these laws, suggesting they were seen not as polluted, but as powerful. Whether the male priests who wrote the original laws would agree is a matter of pure speculation, but it's a meaning that women themselves may have constructed to survive and make sense of their world. Your granddaughter is quiet, thinking this over. The idea is complex, but it seems to satisfy her more than a simple because the law says so. It gives the process a sense of mystery and importance, rather than just shame. As you sit there, you feel a sense of peace. You have finally made your own kind of peace with the system that defined you. You have lived through every stage of it, the fearful initiate, the lonely wife, the proud mother, the resilient member of the Women's Republic, and finally, the wise matriarch. You have seen it from all sides. You no longer feel the sting of its prohibitions, only the deep, weary understanding of its relentless logic. You have said your final goodbyes to the tent at the edge of the village. The monthly cycle of exile and return is now a story you tell, not a life you live. Your body, after its long war, is finally at rest. You have made it to the other side, to the long, quiet season of being clean. You look out at the darkening sky, a sky full of stars that look just as they did when you were a child, and you feel a sense of closure. You are very old now. Your world has shrunk to the size of a single room, the view from a single window. Your days are a quiet rhythm of sleep and wake of signals, your memories more vivid than the present moment. David, your husband, has been gone for several years, and you live with the family of your oldest son. Your daughter-in-law, now a matriarch in her own right, cares for you with a gentle, practiced patience. Sometimes in the quiet of the afternoon, you close your eyes and you are back in the tent. You can smell the goat hair cloth, the wood smoke, the faint tang of blood. You can hear the whir of chiffres spindle and the sound of Rachel's knife carving wood. You see the faces of the women, young and old, who shared your exile. They are clearer to you now than the faces of your own great-grandchildren. The tent, which was once your prison, has become a strange and treasured landscape in your memory. It was the place you learned what it meant to be a woman in this world. You look at the young women in your family now. They still live by the law. They still make the monthly journey to the tent, which has been rebuilt twice in your lifetime but still stands in the same forgotten field. They still perform the ritual immersion in the stream. On the surface, nothing has changed. The ancient words written on the scrolls still hold their power, But you have lived long enough to see the subtle shifts, the small ways that time erodes even the strongest stone. You hear whispers of new ideas brought by traders from the great cities of the West, from the lands of the Greeks and the Romans. They talk of different gods, different ways of understanding the world and the body. They speak of philosophies that value reason above ritual, of medicine that seeks physical causes for bodily functions, not spiritual ones. These are just ripples on the far horizon, but they are a sign that the world is not as static as it seems. The unassailable, eternal truth of the law, which felt so absolute when you were a girl, now seems, well, perhaps not eternal, just very, very old. Historians looking back at your era would see it as a turning point. The world you were born into, a world dominated by the ritual purity codes of the late Bronze and Iron Ages, was about to collide with the Hellenistic and Roman worlds, which had their own different ideas about the body, pollution, and the divine. And in another few hundred years, two new religions, Christianity and Islam, would emerge from the soil of your world, and they would take the ancient laws of purity and transform them in radical ways. Some Christian traditions would largely spiritualize or discard the ritual purity laws of Leviticus, arguing that purity was a matter of the heart, not the body. The menstrual taboo would fade in some branches of the faith, while persisting as folk custom in others. Early Islamic jurisprudence would also engage deeply with these ancient laws, developing its own sophisticated rules around ritual purity, tahara, requiring ablution before prayer, and also defining menstruation as a state that temporarily prevents a woman from certain religious duties like formal prayer or fasting, while not requiring physical segregation. The echoes of your experience would reverberate through history, changing shape and meaning but never disappearing entirely. You wouldn't know any of these specifics, of course, but you can feel a change in the air, a sense of questioning that was not there when you were young. You see it in your granddaughter's eyes. She follows the law, but she asks why in a way you never dared to. Your life has been a testament to the enduring power of these ancient ideas. You were born into them, you were shaped by them, you suffered under them, you found community within them, and you ultimately became a guardian of them. Your body was a text upon which the laws of your society were written, erased, and rewritten. As you drift off to sleep, you think of the moment of immersion, the symbolic death and rebirth. You have experienced it hundreds of times. A final immersion awaits you, the one from which there is no return to the village. You are not afraid. You have spent a lifetime practicing the art of separation, of crossing a threshold into a different state of being. You are more prepared for it than anyone. Your long cyclical journey of purity and impurity, of exile and return, has been a preparation for this final, quiet peace. The rules that bound you are fading. The memories remain, and the world moves on, carrying the ghost of your story into a future you will never see. And so the story ends. The dust of that ancient village settles back into the earth, and the voices fade into the quiet hum of time. The woman who was you has lived her life, her joys and her sorrows, all bound by a sacred law that now feels so distant, so strange. Perhaps as you lie there in the soft darkness of your own room, you can feel the last echoes of her world, the warmth of the sun on clay, the taste of lentil stew, the cool shock of the stream's living water. Her world was so different, yet the heart of her experience, the search for meaning, the need for community, the struggle to find dignity within the rules she was given, is not so different from our own. Let the rhythm of your own breathing slow down now. Feel the gentle weight of your blanket, a comfort she might have cherished in the cold desert night. Her long war is over. Her body is at peace. And you, listening to her story across the silent chasm of millennia, can feel a sense of peace too. The worries of your own day can begin to recede, to soften at the edges. They are just a single thread in a vast, ancient tapestry. Just for tonight, you can let them go. The journey is complete. Now, there is only rest. The end of the article. Good night.